Federal government denies U.S. pressure led to Showere's release. AGF says Shiite leader El-Zakzaky is still in custody because he's being prosecuted by Kaduna State, not the federal government. On the international scene, death toll rises in Philippines typhoon. And in sport, three-time African senior long jump champion Isebrume laments over federal government's neglect.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The federal government says the United States of America did not pressure President Muhammadu Buhari to release Sambo Dasuki and Omoyele Sowore. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami says the president's order for the release of the two men did not come as a result of pressure from the U.S., the media, or any group. He told the BBC on Thursday the president released the two men on compassionate grounds. The minister said the only reason for Sowore and Dasuki's release was the government's commitment to the rule of law, obedience to court orders, and compassionate grounds. He said Sowore and Dasuki's cases were treated on their individual merits and not in relation to one another or to any other factors. He said the claim that Buhari detailed Dasuki to settle scores was blatant falsehood. Time had come for Dasuki and Sowore to enjoy bail based on the merit of their individual cases. As he put it, quote, all the individuals involved were treated fairly and justly, end quote. Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice also explained on the BBC program while the president did not order the release of Shiite leader Ibrahim El-Zakzaky. He said the federal government could do nothing about it because the Shiite leader is being prosecuted by Kaduna State government. Malami said the federal government would not interfere in a judicial process that is solely the responsibility of the state government to handle. In a statement, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice had signed earlier. He said his office had chosen to comply with court orders while it considered whether to pursue an appeal. He reiterated the government's unrelenting commitment to deepening the rule of law and the administration of justice in Nigeria. Islamic militants have been charged with the killings of 35 civilians, 31 of whom were women, in a town and on a military basin in Burkina Faso. 7 soldiers and 80 militants were also reported killed when the army launched its response to repel Tuesday's attack in Abinda, northern Swan province. President Muhammadu Buhari has reacted to the massacre by ensuring the government and people of Burkina Faso that Nigeria and the West African sub-region would not abandon them in this hour of great need. The president's senior special assistant on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, released a statement in Abuja on Thursday that condemned the slayings. He also called on the rest of the world to do the same. On the sidelines of last week's ECOWAS meeting, President Roch March Christian Kabore and President Muhammadu Buhari had agreed to hold a summit next year to sort out issues of security and economy. President Kabore had declared 2 days of national mourning in Burkina Faso. When we think of a place that hosts large collections of Nigeria and African art, the first place that usually comes to mind is the National Museum. But there is a private collector in the country who has more than 7,000 sculptures, paintings, and other media. He also has 55,000 photographs of Nigeria's cultural festivals. Reporter Deji Badmus introduces us to Yemisi Shilan, who believes it is his duty to promote culture and arts.
He's popularly called the crazy art collector. Looking around his expansive compound, it's clear to see why. The artworks here are indisputably a collection of some of the masterpieces on the African continent. And if you think of any great artist to come out of Nigeria, you'll find their work here. Yes, sir. Each of the pieces tells a deep-rooted traditional story that reflects the richness of African socio-cultural heritage. Yemisi Shilon is ranked among the world's top 100 art collectors, whose vast collection includes over 7,000 artworks. He started collecting art pieces 40 years ago as a second-year student in one of the country's most prestigious higher institutions. Over time, it has now become an obsession.
I've collected works from many countries in the world. When I go on cruises, I go on travels, I've visited many countries in the world. I've collected works from many, even a Salvador Dali and so on and so forth. These are all life-size bronze works, metal works, and you don't find many of it in Africa, not to talk of Nigeria.
In 2007, Yemisi Shillong established his art foundation, and in October this year, he opened the Yemisi Shillong Museum of Art at the Pan-Atlantic University in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. The state-of-the-art facility houses modern paintings and sculptures, as well as photographs of ancient cultural festivals.
I have helped different scholars from different universities in the world to come and study Nigerian art. Many of them came for their PhD research. I've helped different Nigerian artists and international artists to on art residency workshops here. I've organized seminars. I've done many things, all with a view to making a difference and leaving a lasting legacy. It gives me satisfaction that I am now establishing the first modern art museum for Nigeria, and the first of its type, I'm told, in sub-Saharan Africa.
Shillong is a selfless promoter of Nigerian art who has donated many of his pieces to public places and institutions across the country. He purchased all of these art pieces with proceeds from his personal investment and has also published 2 books on the collection. He says the historical value of this for him far outweighs the economic gains.
I don't make money from art. I don't sell art. Art is not about monetary value, but what role does it play to promote the culture and the contribution of any society to civilization, to global civilization. And that's the purpose of my collecting art. And also to promote historical content of our society.
Nigeria made around $5 million from the sale of art in 2018. And as more people continue to develop interest for art through the immense contributions of collectors like Yemisi Shillong, there's no limit to how much more the country can realize from art promotion.
Coming up, African news. Mixed reactions in Kenya as government proposes to rename Boxing Day. And later, international stories. Death toll rises in Philippine typhoon.
It is always difficult to assimilate in a new community where one is handicapped in language and culture. So it is with migrants in Uganda who are struggling to integrate into their new communities because of many factors. Reporter Hilary Ali Siga tells us more.
Fine-tuning a new beginning. Paluku Adela is a music producer from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Since 2003, he's had to adjust to life in Uganda, but says it's tough being an immigrant here.
To fit into the industry here in Uganda, remember we have a lot of competitions in Uganda. We found big people, big producers.
The language barrier is another challenge he faces.
My first recording in the studio in Uganda was in Luganda, by where the guy I was recording didn't know how to speak Swahili, didn't know how to speak English, only Luganda. Remember, I don't know Luganda. Remember, I don't know English by then. So I could do all the sign to make myself understanding with the guy. I could at least to bring that harmony through signs.
And many refugees face the same challenges. Many migrants like Adele come to Uganda seeking refugee, but also for better opportunities. While some have made it, others are still struggling to settle in because they have to compete with locals for jobs and limited resources. Uganda is home to over 1 million refugees. Experts say many migrants are driven to relocate because of economic instability in their home countries. But integrating these vast numbers is still a challenge.
Countries like Uganda, where opportunities are fewer even for locals, there will be, yes, competition over resources, available opportunities, which naturally can create issues.
Like many migrants, Adela has chosen to make Uganda his second home and take advantage of the country's peaceful environment. And as refugees continue to come to Uganda, it's hoped they will create opportunities for themselves, which will in turn contribute to the local economy.
All over the world, the day following Christmas Day has been called Boxing Day for decades, and many fun activities take place on that day. Friends and families get together to catch up on old time. Now the Kenyan government wants to rename Boxing Day to change activities for that day to revolve around culture. How would that work? Reporter Robert Nagila tells us in the story.
The day after Christmas. This is what Nairobi, a city that normally chalks on its own traffic, looks like on Boxing Day. Empty. Public spaces, however, are packed to capacity, with people jostling for boat rides, experiencing the merry-go-round, horse and camel rides, and all sorts of fun. But does Boxing Day have any meaning for Kenyans?
I do not know the meaning of Boxing Day. I hear it's the day when the presents are opened. I am over 30 and I have never received any presents.
For many Kenyans, Christmas is a family affair where we all get together to celebrate a day packed in tradition. Boxing Day is usually a day of recovery after, yes, overindulging in drink and food. But this may very well be the last Boxing Day in Kenya if new government proposals come into play in 2020. At the final cabinet meeting of the year on December 19th, chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta, the cabinet proposed renaming Boxing Day an international holiday to Utamaduni or Culture Day. The idea is to celebrate the country's rich cultural diversity and heritage. Essentially, that would mean going from this to this. Many people we spoke to at Uhuru Park, a recreational park adjacent to the Central Business District, are rooting for the change.
We are Africans. We have our own culture. So if it is changed, it will be better than Boxing Day. Because for me, Boxing Day ended a long time ago.
I would like that because it is a Western tradition. If changed, different ethnic groups can come here to sample and learn each other's culture, food and music.
But, as is always the case, not everyone agrees. Those providing the entertainment are uncertain what the change means for them.
They should make it a different day, because many people come here on Boxing Day as an extension of Christmas. It will affect our business.
It's not a done deal yet. The proposed amendments to the Public Holidays Act still have to be approved by Parliament, which resumes its sittings in 2020. So, as the world prepares to bid farewell to 2019, Kenyans are most probably saying cheerio to that good old British tradition of Boxing Day and going back to their roots.
It has always been said that if you give a person fish, you will feed him for a day. But if you teach that person to fish for himself, you will feed him for life. That is what some South African environmental groups have set out to do by educating the poor on how to grow food to feed themselves. Sumitra Undu has the story.
Africa's largest food retailer, ShopRite, has introduced an 18-month program to assist poor communities in the Western Cape with skills training in small-scale farming. Locals are taught everything from soil preparation, planting, harvesting, and how to run a small business.
But also our business does allow the food gardens to come sell at our stores, which offers them a market to sell and gain an income. As you can imagine, in this particular community where there's high levels of unemployment, it makes sense for them to come and sell at our stores, get an income, and be able to support their families.
This is one of several satellite gardens in this community. It essentially runs as a public-private partnership. So the municipality in this area loans the land and hires the workers, and a private investor, ShopRite in this instance, funds the project.
Local farming specialist Food and Trees for Africa goes out to teach, train and mentor communities in subsistence farming. The community farming projects are also carefully selected to ensure optimum benefits. This farm was set up at a local public school. All produce is used to prepare meals for the children and the excess is sold off.
The garden is very important as it serves the whole community. There are several community members who approach us for food, and we make them vegetable parcels to take with. The garden project also creates employment for me and other unemployed community members. The garden also supplies vegetables to the soup kitchen on the premises.
Subsistence farming can make a significant impact in poor and rural communities, not only to reduce vulnerabilities to hunger, but also climate change.
I hope everyone's growing at least 2 vegetables in their garden. One of the biggest things that will stop climate change is growing our own food. The sheer amount of transport that food goes through to get to your plate and processing is a massive contribution to climate change.
These community gardens started about 2 years ago, feeding thousands of people in the area. The local farmers have learnt invaluable skills that will ensure no one goes hungry here again.
When we return, international news. Death toll rises in Philippine typhoon. And later, sports. 3-time African senior champion Decemeber laments over federal government's neglect.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the foreign scene, death toll in the Philippines typhoon Phanphon has risen to 28. The high-magnitude storm battered the country over the Christmas period. Typhoon Phanphon made landfall on Tuesday, causing severe floods. It also destroyed homes in several provinces. The Philippines National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council says 12 persons are missing. The typhoon has also led to the evacuation of more than 58,000 persons and stranded thousands over the holiday period. Officials say some of the dead were hit by trees while others were shocked or drowned. Phanphon struck close to regions hit by Typhoon Haiyan in 2013. More than 6,000 persons were killed in that incident, making it the Philippines' deadliest storm. 12 persons have been confirmed dead in the plane crash in Kazakhstan's capital, North Sultan, on Friday. Back Air Fokker 100 aircraft with 93 passengers and 5 crew members on board was on a pre-dawn flight but lost altitude during takeoff and broke through a concrete fence. Authorities say 49 persons are presently in hospitals receiving treatment for severe burns. Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister Roman Skyler says the cause of the crash in the Central Asian nation was unclear, but authorities are looking at 2 possible scenarios: pilot error and technical failure. Iraqi President Barham Salih says he would rather resign than name Iran-backed bloc's nominee Ashad Al-Eidani as Prime Minister. President Salih is convinced Iraqis would protest against the emergence of Al-Eidani as Prime Minister. The Iranian-backed Bina bloc, the largest in Iraq's parliament, had nominated Basra governor Ashad Al-Eidani to be the next Prime Minister. President Salih says he chose to resign because the constitution does not give him the right to reject nominees for the premiership. Iraq's constitution mandates the largest bloc in parliament to nominate the prime minister, who is then designated by the president. A deadline to name a new prime minister has been missed twice over disagreements on which is the largest bloc in parliament following last year's election. Al-Eidani's name was promptly rejected by Iraqi protesters who poured into the streets on Wednesday calling for an independent candidate. Mass demonstrations have gripped Iraq since early October. Protesters, most of them young, are demanding an overhaul of a political system they see as profoundly corrupt. They also said the system keeps most Iraqis in poverty. More than 450 persons have been killed. Turkey's constitutional court has ruled as unconstitutional the country's ban on accessing Wikipedia in the country. The court says the ban violated rights of freedom of expression and ordered it lifted. The Turkish government barred the website in 2017 because of entries suggesting Turkey had cooperated with jihadist militants in Syria. Turkish censors have often temporarily blocked websites carrying content critical of the government. The Wikimedia Foundation took Turkey to the European Court of Human Rights in May over the ban, arguing that the blocking of the online encyclopedia violated the right to freedom of expression. Wikipedia's founder Jimmy Wales celebrated the ruling in a tweet. China says it will lower or remove import duties on a number of products such as frozen pork and some high-tech products and parts starting in January as part of a tariff adjustment package announced on Monday. Reporter Mark Kay has the details.
Lower duties are expected for farm imports like frozen pork, frozen avocado, non-frozen orange juice, high-tech manufacturing equipment and machine components. Imported pharmaceutical raw materials for treating asthma and new types of diabetes will be exempt. Favorable tariffs for two heavily polluting metals, wolfram and niobium, have been revoked. Starting from July 1st, 2020, China will lower for the fifth time the most favored nation tariff level of 176 information technology products. And for trade relations, China will continue to uphold conventional tariffs with 23 partners, including New Zealand, Peru, Costa Rica, South Korea, Australia and Pakistan.
The tariff cuts are China's annual adjustment on trade policies. They serve to balance domestic supply and demand while also building an open economy at higher level.
China's finance ministry says the tax cuts will also help China share development results and build complementary trade relations. For this, Chinese customs will continue to apply preferential tariffs on the imports from least developed countries having diplomatic ties with China.
Still ahead, sports. Three-time African senior long jump champion Decemeber laments over federal government's neglect. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. This is CNN News in Sport. Chess World governing body has nullified the Nigeria Chess Federation's decision to ban chess players Bomo Kigiha and Austin Akpemeye. The body said it was not satisfied with the disciplinary complaint brought forward by the Nigerian Chess Federation against the two players. NCF boss Olalekan Adeyemi banned Kigiha and Akpemeye in June for violation of FIDE ethics. The Chess World Governing Body's Ethics Committee has cleared both players to continue with their sporting activities with immediate effect. African women's long jump champion Decemeber has expressed their displeasure at the treatment received from the federal government after she represented the country at the 2019 World Athletics Championship, where she won the country's first medal in 6 years.